That's my secret, cat. I'm always angry.
Alright. I ran out of patience. On the roost!
Hey everyone, Captain, big fan of Spider-Man.
Avengers! Assemble.
Hello, Peter.
Hello and welcome back to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and we're going to be talking She-Hulk. And today I have a special guest with me who's going to break down the rest of the She-Hulk episodes with me. You heard him break down WandaVision. It's Casey McGeorge. How are you today, Casey?
How's it going, everybody?
Good. This is right up your alley. The 9-episode sitcom length ones, right? Like this is the last time you were on. It was the same thing.
Yeah, it's been a little different. I've caught some of the previous shows and missed some of them, but I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe because it was marketed kind of as a sitcom. She-Hulk kind of caught my eye, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna check it out. There's actually another reason too. I'm not gonna lie.
Tatiana Maslany?
As She-Hulk, I don't know why. There seems to be a growing fan base around the She-Hulk itself. I can't lie. That kind of definitely intrigued me a little more. So I was like, well, what's the worst that could happen? If I watch first episode, I don't like it, I don't have to watch anymore.
Yeah.
But within the first 5 minutes, I was hooked.
Whatever you do, don't look up Marvel Rule 34. All right, everyone? Don't do that.
No, I know. I know what Rule 34 is. I will not go down that route. But I've also noticed online that there seems to be a growing number of people who are finding an attraction that they didn't know they had.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've never really, I wasn't too familiar with her. Like, I think she's in some Parks and Recs episodes.
She also did, I guess, the show called Orphan Black or something.
Yes, that's what I don't know her from that. Like, I've never seen it, but I've always heard people talk about it and how good she did at playing. Apparently, they're all clones of her or whatever, and she plays multiple roles with different personalities, like throughout the course of that, show. So, people said she's got some really good acting chops from that. But, you know, there's no real multiple personalities in this, but she can play a range of emotions pretty much, you know, and she's familiar with sitcoms. She was in Parks and Rec for a couple episodes. Yeah, so she's experienced in this.
And I can't be the only one. I actually had to look up, like, obviously I know she plays Jessica Walters, but I had to look up, like, is she playing She-Hulk, or is there someone else who is playing She-Hulk with, obviously, the CGI.
Like a Lou Ferrigno situation.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Is there like a Lou Ferrigno situation? Like, and apparently not. She's playing both parts. Or from what I read, I mean...
Yeah, they got her CG'd. Yeah, she wears, like, the motion dots. And Jessica Walters is, Lucille Bluth.
Yeah, okay, Jessica.
Which would be an interesting show.
Oh, especially with Buster. Here's some money. Go see a Star Wars.
Yeah, it's one banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10? In today's market, maybe. But yeah, we are talking She-Hulk Attorney at Law, Episode 2, Superhuman Law, written by Jessica Gao, directed by Coiro, and it aired August 25th of 2022 on Disney+. The short synopsis they have here is Jen is hired at a prestigious law firm but must practice as She-Hulk and rep a complicated client. So what was your initial thoughts on episode 2? And actually, I guess let's rewind. Your thoughts on episode 1 before we move on.
Yeah, so like I said, I was intrigued because of the way it was kind of marketed as an actual sitcom, you know. So I didn't know what to expect. As we've talked before with a lot of things, I've never got into comics, so I didn't know any. To be honest, until they announced it, I didn't even know there was a character called She-Hulk. Right. Episode 1, like I just said a few minutes ago, it got me in the first 5 minutes. it was definitely intriguing. The fourth wall breaking was interesting, kind of caught me off guard, but especially the way they're doing it in these 2 episodes. I guess I've also read that that's part of the comic as well.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something behind that. I don't know.
She was breaking the fourth wall before Deadpool was in the comics. So people keep saying this is a Deadpool ripoff, but this was around before Deadpool started doing it.
So the few times, like it, and especially in the first one where she started talking to the camera, it took me a minute. Like, okay, is there someone else in the room that I don't know? Oh wait, she's talking to me. You know, I definitely enjoyed the first episode. I love the chemistry between her and Mark Ruffalo as Hulk. Quick side note, I know he probably gets a lot of credit anyway. Can we give some love to Mark Ruffalo?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I don't know if they ever will do a Hulk movie after the first couple weren't so well received, but I don't know if it's just Mark Ruffalo, but his version of Bruce Banner and Hulk and now Smart is, I love it. Like it I think it combines the best of everything there.
What I was going to say with that real quick is that, for people that don't know, it was originally, there was Ang Lee Hulk, which I forget who played him. Eric Bana, I think, played Hulk back then.
I think that one was the Incredible Hulk.
It was just called Hulk, I think.
There was one that was
Incredible Hulk.
And then there was Incredible Hulk. For one
Incredible Hulk was the one with Edward Norton. Okay. And then he got recast because Edward Norton wasn't really a team player. He didn't really want to focus on, I guess, he wanted more control for, I think, like sequels and stuff, and didn't really want to mix them, I think, in with the Avengers. So it was kind of like a bad marriage at that point that they had to cut and bring in Mark Ruffalo for Avengers. What also I wanted to point out for people that don't know is that before Disney had bought Marvel in 2009, 2008 is when Incredible Hulk was released. It was distributed by Universal, and part of that contract from the original Ang Lee Hulk in 2003 is that Universal would have to distribute any Hulk film. So once Disney bought them, they stopped making Hulk films because then Universal would get all the profit. So the only reason I say that is because you would think, they didn't have great reviews and stuff, but also like neither did Thor: The Dark World, and they still made Ragnarok. So I feel like they wouldn't give up on that. And there's rumors that Universal thing is no longer going to be an issue soon. So some people are thinking that this buildup that we're going to get with Hulk in this episode and last episode is because they might be setting up a movie for Mark Ruffalo, which would be interesting.
It definitely would be interesting. I obviously I hadn't talked about it here, but I know I talked with you about it in May. I did a binge of all of Marvel, the Infinity Saga from the box that I have. So in the course of 8 days, I watched all 22 movies. Kids, don't do that. Let me just tell you this right now. I literally didn't leave my house but like 3 times during the week. It's exhausting. It's a lot. Actually, I'm probably going to do it again at some point, but it's just a lot. And that was something I noticed when I was looking at Easter eggs for every movie. The first few Marvel movies were distributed. I think one was done, a couple were done by Paramount or something. And
the 2 Iron Man movies, yeah.
And then eventually they shifted over to their own. But I enjoyed the first episode. I thought it was a great introduction. I'm glad we got the origin story in the beginning instead of like episode 5 or 6. How they've kind of done some of their other ones where they just kind of get into it and then later they kind of have a flashback that shows this is who this person is or this is how it started or whatever. I talked with you about it real quick and I'm probably 246% wrong, but I don't really trust her paralegal and her best friend. she just seemed way too into having her turn into the Hulk. That's probably just out of enthusiasm as I'm looking at this now. Once again, I don't know anything about the comics, so I don't know if there's anything that goes on in there. I definitely have enjoyed, especially afterwards, reading, going on to different sites like BuzzFeed and seeing the Easter eggs that are involved in each episode, because even though they're around 30 to 45 minutes, they can pack so many in there. And because it's Marvel, there's so much that they can pull from that they obviously know people are going to watch these frame by frame at some point and pull out all these little things. But I just don't have the patience or the ability to do that. So I don't usually get to watch them until like Thursday evening when I get home from work. And then, like, I'll sit home that night, watch it, and then I'll go online afterwards. And it's been a good show. The whole show has been fun so far. And that's probably one of the things I've liked about it most. I'm sure there's going to be more action at some point down the road. Maybe some more serious stuff. But it's been fun. And I think the writing has been incredible. Especially the first episode where Hulk was talking to Jennifer, and she talked about how she has to control her emotions as a woman, because if she don't, she's labeled difficult, and it could cost her life ultimately. And that's one of those things where you can watch a TV show or a movie, and sometimes some things hit you as that's from real experience. Like that's not something that's just written or made up. Like that's coming from someone's heart because they've been through that. And that kind of that definitely hit me, because you could tell whoever wrote that, whether it was the one writer or writer's room, that's definitely a shared experience. And many women online have talked about that, how that's might be one of the truest things that's ever been said in a Marvel entity so far. But it was, the whole thing's been done really well.
All right, yeah, we can get a little bit more. So you talked about the BuzzFeed thing. I have those pulled up that we can talk about after we run through the plot here. And then, yeah, so I enjoyed episode 2, I think, more than episode 1. What I liked, episode 1 was, if you listen to my review, everyone that's listening now, solid. I said, I'm just glad to kind of get done the origin stuff now, get it done with, and start moving ahead to what I think is going to be the more interesting aspects of the show, which is her as a superhero lawyer, defending superheroes and superpowered people. So, the first episode didn't have a lot of that because we kind of start with it. We go backwards for the origin, and then we go right back to the end. And then as soon as she defeats Titania, it's end of episode. So I liked this one, I think, a bit more because of, I feel like we're actually getting to the meat of the show, just like any pilot sometimes will take a bit to introduce everything before going into it. So this episode started off with the news reports, right, of the I really liked the sketchings from the court, showing her stopping Titania. And I thought that was really cool that in the news broadcast, it shows the court sketchings, because, there'd be no cameras or anything inside the courtroom. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed them actually dubbing her the She-Hulk at that point. And then I really liked the bar being called the Legalese, and having where all the legal people go after work, and getting to see them all chanting for She-Hulk, which Jennifer is not a fan of the name.
Yeah, the guy that they get on camera to kind of dub her She-Hulk was kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
the legal bar there, that was awesome. So the one thing I think some people might have issues with, where ultimately she ends up losing her job because obviously she turns into She-Hulk. She stops the jury from getting hit by a bench that's being thrown at them, right? And then for whatever reason, obviously, but she had a winning case. Like, that's established later. Like, she was going to win the case. But it's declared a mistrial, right? Because she kind of tainted the jury. And then the district attorney's office says, hey, unfortunately, we can't keep you because it's a publicity nightmare. And I started thinking about it. And the dude is definitely right.
Mm-hmm.
One, I can see why that case would have been thrown out, because that definitely would taint the jury and kind of cause some issues. I get that. Two, and I'm not an advocate of anybody losing their job unless they do horrible, horrible things, but like, think about this. How can she, other than what we'll get to where she gets a job, who can actually hire her? Like, ultimately, because she does become a liability. They don't know she's in control of her emotions and that she can kind of turn into She-Hulk at her will, and she can go back and forth whenever she chooses to. The only thing they know about, which is brought up later by her dad, is the last time they saw Hulk, he's destroying cities and he's doing all of these horrible things, right?
Yeah.
So think about it. If you're in a courtroom, that's a very small enclosed space, and maybe there's witnesses or something that doesn't go her way, you can imagine that people might be scared she would Hulk out and rampage through the courtroom. Or there might be people who would either be so inclined to not really listen to evidence and vote her way because, as it's brought up later, everyone knows that Hulk is the one who snapped his fingers and caused the blip and caused everybody to come back. So there's the fact that people might be inclined to kind of vote in her way in the trial because of that. Or they might not like the fact that Hulk, maybe he's caused damage to them, whatever, so on and so forth. So yeah, I can kind of get that where unfortunately she's not really able to land a job for a period of time because, like, nobody wants to hire her. And that's kind of something we probably don't really think about with a lot of these things. Like, what is she supposed to do here,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is something that, you when you bring it up there is, it's kind of played for, I think, not as serious as the thing is, right? Like, this would actually be a pretty a pretty big deal having another Hulk. And like you said, they don't understand that this Hulk is so different than Mark Ruffalo's Hulk. Meaning, while Mark Ruffalo's Hulk and Bruce Banner is now Smart Hulk and has fused that together, for a while he was a separate identity that would just go nuts on people and go on a rampage. Nobody saw the footage of her, right? Like, because it's courtroom sketches. So they think it could, you could think that she got mad just like Bruce would, saved the people, but then maybe wasn't all there. So they're like, we can't have this, person be hired, because, like you said, they're afraid that she might Hulk out, and they might not understand the difference between this hulking out and the other hulking out. And she ends up getting fired. Before that, though, I wanted to bring up the other lawyer guy from episode 1, and we see him again in episode 2 here, where he's really a jerk. One, he says he sees a hot girl, he's going to go talk to it, right? Which I thought was really bad. And then before that, you know, when he's asking about the powers, I really like this part where he's like, "Oh, nepotism, right?" And it's like, how would that even work? You know, I mean, I guess theoretically, Bruce could have done this without, you know, without the accident, but you know, nobody understands, I think, really how Bruce had gotten the Hulk anyway, and how this stuff works, and how your blood needs to actually be, you know, suited to handling the gamma radiation. But just kind of he really is. I called him the asshole lawyer is what, because I couldn't remember his name, so that's what I call him.
He's gonna get some comeuppance at some point during the
I hope
series.
so.
Like I can see that, and I hope so too. Also, I think something we need to think about. I think it was Vision when they were talking about the Sokovia Accords, where they were like, we have to think. Does obviously superhumans, as they're called in this series, and superheroes are protecting people, but does their mere existence cause these villains or an otherworldly, like, is their mere existence causing everything to happen? And by having her around, is, especially since she's a public figure and people know who she is that just going to, by her nature of being around, cause more chaos to follow because she is who she is? And so they showed some things that you don't tend to think about, like they brought up insurance. Like she talked about she needs a job and she's gonna need healthcare and insurance, and her friend the paralegal brings up, well, you could join the Avengers, and she's like, how does that even work? Do they have insurance? And then, you know, I'm a weird dude and I overthink things. Then for about 30 minutes at some point, I went down this weird hole of like, how would you insure? Who would insure, and how would you insure a superhero? Like, you know, there's people who do risk management and they're the ones who come up with all these things. Like, what kind of premiums would someone like that have? Because by nature, they're, as we said, they're going to be more inclined to be involved in these things. And they're probably going to be more inclined to get injured and hurt and various other things. Like, what are their premiums a month? Like, it's got to be ludicrous.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting question because, you know, that's one of the things that I think has kind of become more popular recently in comics and in movies and adaptations is, how would this actually work in real life, right? Like, I see people make jokes all the time, like trying to explain to my boss why I'm late because Hulk threw my car in the middle of a battle. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then the boss being like, "Oh, it's your fault still," you know, because they don't really give you a lot of leeway as it is with even like accidents and stuff. So, I mean, it is funny to think about, like, yeah, okay, how would the insurance aspect of that work? Is it covered? Is that an act of God? You know, we have literal gods with Thor. Like, is it an act of God or what is it?
Okay, so I got a funny story about that. So when I was in the Army, I had a problem child guy. He was always late. He was always messing up. And it was always some weird off the wall excuse, right? Like, and it, like every time I was like, what is it this time? Okay, gotta take care of him, deal with it, whatever. And I'm at Fort Knox in Kentucky. So one day, he's late. What is it this time? You're not going to believe this. Oh, man, he's never started with this. This is good. I'm trying to get to work, and all of a sudden, there's like 3 or 4 horses that are running around on the street, and everything's blocked off. And I'm like, dude, really? Like, that's the best you can come up with? 3 or 4 hours later, the building I worked with, our legal secretary, she was part of, she had a bunch of horses that were kept on post, and they were, it's kind of hard to explain, but I was in a cavalry unit and they had horses and stuff, and they were actually doing a rehearsal for something, and her horses had actually gotten loose and started running all over the place, and then caused a huge traffic jam because, like, they were in the middle of the road, and then people started honking, and then they stopped and got scared and were kind of going crazy, and had to wrangle them up. So after all of this, right, the dude was actually right. I actually had to go to him and apologize because he was 100% correct. Like, this one was not his fault.
That's funny.
So yeah, like you said, think about this. Like, you got some dude who's probably like one thing away from losing a job somewhere, right?
Right.
And the Hulk like causes damage and the trains crash or something. But maybe like the boss doesn't know because he's, he doesn't pay attention to the news, so he doesn't know the Hulk went on a rampage, and like he's not gonna want to hear this. Also, quick fact, I'm a wrestling fan. Lloyd's of London used to do insurance policies for wrestlers, right? Obviously, they put their body on the line a lot. They can get injured very easily. So a lot of them had these massive hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million policies on their bodies as a wrestler. Lloyd's of London ended up losing a ton of money from a bunch of them because they would get injured they'd get injured, and then they wouldn't be able to wrestle again. Then they'd have to pay it out. And then maybe at some point through modern medical advances, they might be able to heal themselves, but they would have to pay the policy back. But some of these policies go anywhere from like $250,000 to a couple $1 million. But Lloyd's of London stopped doing it because they were losing money simply based on the amount of money they had to pay out the wrestlers like Rick Rude and a few other people based on their injuries. So, like, unless it's Tony Stark Insurance Company, like, who's got the money to insure? Like, imagine the injuries Peter Parker goes through.
Yeah.
And he's just like a regular dude, like.
Well, I think I guess the good thing for usually when we look at how superheroes are treated, they usually have some sort of doctor that's on staff that is payrolled by somebody, right? Either the government or Tony Stark, etc. In this day and age, though, I mean, I don't know with Tony gone, like how that's working. I guess Bruce could help out, but I don't know if I want.
Probably not for a while.
Probably
not for a while. We'll get to, but probably not.
Yeah.
Also, like you said, the act of God policy. I'm sure a bunch of people have read about insurance companies not paying out things for earthquakes or like I live in California, I have to get separate policy for earthquakes. People who live in like flood zones and where hurricanes hit a lot have to get a special policy for that, right? A normal policy doesn't cover it. I mean, we've all heard of like acts of God that insurance policies won't cover. Like you said, we know gods are real. Like we know there's Thor and Loki. Also, I'm not really sure how these people know how does everyone know Hulk is the one who snapped his fingers? The only people there were other superheroes.
Well, so this was actually answered in Miss Marvel, by the way, is that Ant-Man went on a podcast or hosted a podcast where he explained a lot of the situations on what happened during during all of his, like, he wrote a book as well that we're going to see in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. And he also, I guess, was on a podcast where he had conversations about what exactly happened. So there you go.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad that is answered because there's been a lot of things I've been wondering. Like,
yeah,
the only people there were like the villains and the heroes. Like,
I'd question that on almost every show we've done on here. I'm like, how do they know all this?
and in all fairness, it would be Ant-Man, and I would love to see, and maybe we'll see it during Quantumania. I would love to see footage of Paul Rudd like hosting that podcast and talking about it or going on his book tour. Like, that would be awesome. But, so yeah, like, I'm sure there's an insurance company who's going to be like, yeah, that's not covered. Thor and Mjolnir and Stormbreaker caused that damage, and that's an act of God because he's a literal god. So, yeah, the fact that your house and family's dead, we're not covering that. Like, who's... And then what happens? What? So now it goes to court, and now, you have Jennifer Walters there trying to represent you. That's a whole separate interesting thing that could happen. But anyway, she eventually at some point she calls her cousin, right? I need to know where this nickname of Fuzzball came from. Yeah. Is that ever explained?
Not to my knowledge.
Like, I love the fact that he has that nickname for her. I love the fact that it's even in his phone as Fuzzball.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, I want to know where that came from. Also, as we'll get to in a second, who is Hulk's cell phone provider?
Really good service, huh?
Who does he have service with? Because the only other service I've ever seen that made me think about that was in Amazing Spider-Man, where he was in the subway tunnels in New York City,
Oh
and he
yeah.
was getting picture perfect cell phone service, and I'm like, dude, who is your provider, man? How's that even feasible? But yeah,
Yeah,
go.
I'm assuming it's some sort of one he made himself or so. Like I'm starting to think that's probably um, the answer there because I'm not sure um, how else he would have gotten that. I mean, because these are characters now that are going in space more, and he is a scientific guy. So my writing off of it is okay. He made his own thing. Maybe I feel like that's the only way that it works.
Uh, I don't know, maybe. Um, but yeah, the job hunt sucks for a while for her. She can't really find a job. Um, and the emotion she shows by the rejection coming over and over, and people telling her, we can't hire you for whatever reason. Uh, yeah, Tatiana can show a huge range of emotions, and she's doing a fantastic job with this role so far.
Yeah, I agree. And so if we're talking about the job hunt right now, one thing I really liked when she got fired is the title card change to attorney for hire. I thought that was really really cool.
I did not
Um,
notice that.
yeah, it showed attorney at law and then it switched to attorney for hire. So that was I thought a really fun fun move. And then, while she's jobless, she goes to her family dinner, which is where we have some great conversations. Her dad instantly stole the show. I love that he asks about that Hawkeye guy. What happens to his arrows? Like, does he just leave them there, or does he have to go pick them up? Like, he's asking the real questions.
I have never thought of that until he brought that up. And I think of some weird questions because
Yes, you do.
I overthink things and go down weird rabbit holes. And as he said that, I'm like, yeah, like is he just leaving random arrows around on the battlefield? Like what is going on? It's bad enough he's a dude with a bow and arrow, but like and you know what? Seeing her dad, I didn't recognize it at first. A buddy of mine at work who watches the show, we talked about it the next day, who told me it's Mark Lynn Baker, cousin Larry from Perfect Strangers. I recognize him, but I couldn't place it. Like it was one of those things. Like I know that dude, but he's a little older now, and I just can't place it. That made me do the dance of joy, or make me want to do the dance of joy because I could never pull that off. And that was probably about the realest family dinner scene I've ever seen in a TV show or a movie, where there's one guy who's just I don't know, the slacker stoner dude there who's just
Yeah, I
doing
guess it's her
whatever.
cousin or something.
Um,
Because it looks like she has like an aunt and uncle there as well.
Everyone's asking questions. Everyone's got an opinion about this or that. Like I said, it was brought up that like Hulk is the one who snapped his fingers, so they're listening to podcasts or they read the book apparently. Um, and she's just sitting there, kind of like waiting for everything to end. Like okay, I gotta show up. This I got a couple more hours. This needs to end. But one of the best things was a couple minutes later in the garage, where her dad asks, "How are you doing?" And she's trying to pass it off. "Oh, I'm still looking for a job and things get better." No, no, kid. How are you actually doing? And that was kind of a real moment too, where she realizes she's with her dad and she can kind of open up a little bit and let her
Yeah.
guard down.
Yeah, no, that was a good scene, and mentioned, this is not the first time we've had a Hulk in the family. You didn't destroy a city like he did. Like, you'll be fine. Like, this is just something you're going through. pretty much. And the next day, it feels like in the show anyway. I mean, it could be a little bit later. Is when we actually get her offer that she jumps at immediately, without knowing the full details, which she'll learn on her first day. But this is from Goodman, Lieber, Kurtzberg, and Holloway, GLK and H, which is the client she was going up against that got her suit thrown out. This is also who she works for in the comics, by the way. So a good way to have her get in there. So she accepts it. She goes in her first day of work, and he's like, so you're going to be leading the Superhuman Law Division, and we need you and She-Hulk full time. Which, at that point, she has to agree to. She's kind of locked in here. But she'll eventually kind of be able to finagle a way of, I got to think about this, right? Because when she's told who her client is, that's when that happens. What I want to ask you, though, is there's a part where she's talking, not paying attention. She's talking to the camera. And then we get Holloway asking her what her thoughts on something were that we didn't hear. And she just says she's agnostic on it. And he says, what do you think he was asking?
I don't know. That's going to come back to bite her later for sure. That's going to come back up, I think, at some point, for sure.
It could, yeah.
I also like, so we all know what it's like to be the new person at work, right? You come into wherever it is that you work at, and you're a brand new person, and things are just weird and different because you're a new person in a new place, right? And you start seeing some of these people. Some of them just might give you a nod. Some might give you a side eye because some people are just jerks, right? This happens. And some people might even know what it's like, not me, to be a new person at work where people might not feel you don't deserve the job. Or maybe there's a grudge held because you got hired for a position that other people wanted, right? So there's going to be people giving you side eye. Now imagine you're getting a job as She-Hulk and you have to walk around that and get gawked at and side eye from everybody there in this law firm. And people are looking at you and staring at you, and other women in the job are looking at you with hatred in their eyes, or people are looking at you with fear in their eyes as you're walking through. Like, that's gotta be uneasy, to say the least.
Definitely. No, I would agree. It's probably a little uneasy feeling. Not being able to, I guess, kind of like be what I would say is yourself at times. You have to be this. She is herself as She-Hulk, right? But she feels so self-conscious, I think, about this. She's hesitant to do it. She's always told Bruce in episode 1, like, I don't even want to be a Hulk. I just want to be a lawyer. And now her whole lawyer persona is going to be based around her being She-Hulk. And it's her having to come to terms with that. At some point, her assistant, her paralegal, who's her best friend, is like, hey, who cares if you have to be She-Hulk? We got a corner office. We got this great view out here. And I'm sure the money's probably good with this job.
Well, remember too, like we said, they don't know anything about her. They know she is a Hulk. I think people might have come to terms with the fact that Hulk doesn't necessarily Hulk out anymore and go crazy and decide to destroy an entire city. But they probably feel he's done it enough before. It can happen at any given moment in time. Like, so anytime, even though he's Smart Hulk, anytime people are around him, there might be some people who are very skeptical or fearful being around him just because he has a history of that, right? Like, understandably so. They don't know anything about her. Once again, they don't know she's completely in control of all her emotions, and she's capable of doing this. So let's say you're on the 56th floor of this office building with her. Like, to some people, they're going to be looking at this like, man, I might go to work tomorrow and die because, once again, she might get some bad news about a case, or find out a judge rules against her or something, and she might go ballistic in this office building, and then like, you know, I'm in the warpath here. So some of it might be a little bit justified simply because she is coming in as She-Hulk. But I think that could also be Marvel's way of maybe kind of painting a picture on society about people of other cultures and races and things coming in and various other things. But you never know.
Yeah, that's a good point. So then we get to who her client is going to be. It's Emil Blonsky. It's Abomination from The Incredible Hulk. He's gone up against Bruce before. She has a conflict of interest, but Blonsky has waved away any sort of issue of that. He's acknowledged that. And we are left with her having to think about it. And he says, if you don't take this client, then you don't get the job, is what Holloway says to her. So she has to think about it. She does go meet with Blonsky. So this is funny too, right? She's told she has to be Hulk form all the time. And she gets there and they're like, you can't use your Hulk form in here. So she has to go in as a human to the actual prison. So she's kind of like in this middle ground here of, okay, well, that place wants me to always be a Hulk. I get here to see my client. I can't be the Hulk. So it's like, just a little funny how that worked out for her. And we get a pretty great run-in with Emil Blonsky, who brings up some good points that, hey, I was just doing orders. They told me, your government is the one that told me that we had to stop Hulk and that he was terrorizing the city. So I felt like that's what I was doing. And then they also pumped me up with the super soldier serum, which made me even more angry and Hulk out myself as Abomination. And it's really their fault. And she sees this as an opening, Casey, for her case.
So, two things. I like the as she's going in and the guard is explaining the rules. Don't touch the glass. Don't step over the yellow line. Blah, blah, blah. I love the whole, is he going to eat my face with a nice Chianti and some fava beans? Man, this is a prison, right? So
yeah.
I like the whole, Silence of the Lambs things, but love the tonal shift there. And Blonsky was right. Like, as I started thinking about this, like he was basically a mercenary brought in from General Thunderbolt Ross, right? Send them down to, where is it, Brazil? They were in Brazil initially. Him and his team try and fight and capture the Hulk. They can't. And then ultimately he ends up turning into Abomination. Which, once again, how did he get the name Abomination? Who gave him the name? And how does everybody else know the name Abomination? I'm sure there's probably an answer, but I just started thinking about that.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an official answer to that.
But, and then he's basically just in this glass cage of emotion, this glass cage there for however long. He's writing haikus now, which seem to be horrible, which made me laugh. But, so, obviously we know at the end of Incredible Hulk, he gets captured, right? They have him, they put him on some sort of trial. He's up for parole. But now I start thinking, what kind of justice system does someone like the Abomination or whatever other superheroes or superhumans that they capture have to go through? Like, I mean, we all know the justice system is not fair for normal people here, in the United States. Now you're taking the dude who's the Abomination, and now granted, I guess he only got 15 years or something, and he's up for parole. But okay, if you're on the parole board, how do you reconcile paroling somebody like that?
Right.
Like, it's hard enough, and we see people who are involved in mass murder and serial killers, and I live out here in California, and people from the Manson family come up for parole every so often, and more often than not, they're denied. Every now and then, these people, because they're like 70 or 80 by the time they're released, are released back into society, which that's a whole different thing. And, that's 40, 50 years after the fact. So maybe they're no longer a threat. But how do you reconcile someone who was such a highly trained and skilled soldier as he was, who obviously they may not know the government pumped him full of the super serum, or they may not believe that. That can be up for debate. Like, we know the truth, but the people who are on the parole board might not want to believe those facts. We get
right.
it. But how do you reconcile with 10, 15 years later, we're going to release this dude who still might be a danger back into society? Like, that's a difficult thing to try and vote on, I guess.
Yeah, it's tough, right? I assume they would be able to somehow, there'd be some sort of way that they're able to say, we gotta look at ourselves as the government, right? The government themselves are not going to say that, okay? But I mean, the the jury, I guess, looking at it, if it goes to trial, which at this point is up in the air, because as we'll see later, he does escape, which might hurt any sort of chance he has. Those people looking at this and saying, oh, geez, I don't like, this is a scandal is the word I'm looking for here of, okay, so they let this guy take the fall for it. And, here he is taking the fall. And should he have, right? Should he have taken the fall for this? Or should we have done something more to help him with that? But
you also have to reconcile with the fact that even though it wasn't his fault, the government pumped him full of that. How much damage was done to Harlem in New York City between him and Hulk?
Right, but I mean, how much stuff has Hulk done that he hasn't paid crimes for? You know what I'm saying? Like, he hasn't assisted.
He can also bring up the fact he saved the world and snapped everybody back to existence.
Yeah, but he was kind of a free man before that. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was a free man with the Avengers. But
he was also he saved the world with the Avengers. So that's what I'm saying. Like, that kind of wipes the slate clean. I know it's weird and it probably doesn't work in a legal sense. But, like, remember the invasion of people maybe the alien invasion that came down to New York City? Yeah, who was there to help save you guys? That was me. Now, granted, there was a lot of damage caused, but once again, I helped save. There's people alive because of me. So, yeah, we're just going to wipe that off the board.
Yeah, no, that is kind of the kind of the question, I guess, is how would this work? And the way I think it's going to work is there is a Thunderbolts movie that will be releasing at the end of Phase 5. Thunderbolts is kind of like the Suicide Squad for Marvel, which means that you're going to have some morally gray characters. You're going to have some villains on government jobs to assist. And I think this could be a way for Abomination to, hey, if we let you get out of here, you're going to be part of our contracted team that is going to do the government's dirty work. And I think he'd be the fact that Tim Roth that's his name, right? The actor, keeps coming back at this point after Incredible Hulk was so long ago, 15 years ago almost. And the fact that they keep bringing him back, he was in Shang-Chi, which we saw a little bit of in this show. He was in, he's in this. He's been mentioned, I think, in other things. He is, I think they're setting him up for some sort of role in Thunderbolts.
I think I saw that it's rumored that he's supposed to be one of the people, one of the characters in Thunderbolts. I do like the fact that they did bring back Tim Roth. And as we'll get to in a minute, I like the fact that they're acknowledging that movie and not totally wiping away everybody and everything from that movie. They're acknowledging that movie did exist and it happened, even though things are not how they appeared in that movie.
The only thing that doesn't match is Ruffalo, which they bring a reference to here when he's talking to her on the phone.
I
He
love
says
that. I
he
caught that
was a
immediately.
totally different person, and you
Literally.
know, yeah, literally. And she looks at the camera and says, "Hi," yeah. So because I saw some take on Twitter saying they're finally recognizing this as canon. It's like this has been recognized as canon. Abomination was in Shang-Chi. We had Thunderbolt Ross was in Civil War, was in Infinity War. He was a constant thorn in their sides at that point from the government standpoint. The only thing that really isn't, they showed footage of the Harlem fight in, I think, Avengers or Iron Man 2. Like, these
Yeah.
are things that have been referenced. The only thing that hasn't been referenced really is his was Betty Ross, right? Like they didn't really talk anything about his love interest from that movie, and that's probably fine. I don't
And the
think
character change.
or shock the world.
They really didn't acknowledge the character change that much. They might have kind of hinted around it, but I don't think it was ever really brought up in any of the other movies. It was just kind of, you know what happened, we know what happened. Let's just move on. We have someone else here, but it's still the same character. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that little, my buddy at work didn't recognize that. He thought it was just maybe because they were talking about like how he's kind of grown and evolved and he's now Smart Hulk, and I'm like, yeah, that might be it a little bit, but I'm like,
That's what they're. So that is what I think the reference is for Hulk's end of it. If he isn't breaking the fourth wall there, I think it can be read both ways. But when you have,
if you know, you know.
If you know, and when she breaks the fourth wall to laugh at that, it's a yes, we understand. It's what it's like. It's like in Iron Man 2 when Don Cheadle comes up and he's like saying about Rhodey, he's like, "Hey, look, it's me. Get used to it. Like, this is me. I'm Rhodey. Get used to it," is his like type of line there. And it's like the same sort of reference that if you're like, "Oh, where's Terrence Howard?" Once you get that of like, yes, we're addressing this. I'm now Rhodey. Thank you.
When they changed out Aunt Viv's in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and at like the first episode where the new Aunt Viv came out, there was a couple people were like Jazz came up and looked at her and was like, "There's something different about you, but I can't place my finger on it." Yeah, we know. And this is where she's obviously this is something she's got to reconcile with herself. Obviously her cousin and Blonsky have had their issues in the past, and she probably feels very strongly about, okay, the government did this to him. He's paid his price. He deserves to have a second chance, right? Understandable.
Yeah.
But there's still the whole thing of he might be dangerous, and the fact that him and my cousin have had fights that have torn up half of Harlem. So she calls her cousin. She won't let him get a word in at all, and she keeps kind of rambling on. And Hulk just kind of brings up, he's like, "I think you're calling to tell me you're taking the job." Yeah, I'm calling to tell you I'm taking the job. This is where we see his iPhone, where she's labeled as Fuzzball, which is awesome. And this is where we brought up earlier. We see that eventually they do a good shot of framing this. We don't know where he's at. We think he's just at a desk somewhere, wherever the Hulk hangs out, either in Mexico,
probably in that Mexico base. Yeah, that's where my thought was.
In the basement somewhere where his little lab was down there. That's kind of what I thought. So they frame it really well where you can't tell, and then eventually we find out he's on a spaceship, and the call just kind of drops, and the spaceship just zooms off to wherever. So two things. One, like I said, I want to know who his carrier is, or how he's able to merge alien technology and things to be able to give us great cell phone coverage, because that's awesome. Actually, 3. 2, is there any roaming charges on that? Because that'd be a hell of a bill if it was. But 3, is that the same spaceship from the episode 1?
I didn't get a clear look at it. I guess I can try to scrub through it real quick. I don't think so. I'm thinking this might be something he has made himself, maybe. I do like the way he kind of, she kind of phrases it of like, "Are you gonna be in LA anytime soon?" And he's like, "I've got other things to handle right now." And that he's not able to right now. So let me see. I'm looking at it is the same ship. You're right. Yep. I got a screenshot. I paused it right at the time. So he's made some upgrades to it because he's got his own desk with like books on it and everything, but it has that ring shape, like it did on the in the first episode. So yeah, it looks like it's pretty much a him fixing that up, I guess, after he had helped restore Jennifer. He goes, gets the ship, and starts making so apparently it was supposed to be a message to Hulk. I don't know if he's got the message, but most people think, and I mentioned this last week, is that he's going to be heading to Sakaar. He's got a child in the comics.
I got something here. This is from the Direct. She-Hulk producer confirms where Hulk's spaceship is going. The producers have addressed it. An exclusive interview with the Direct's Pen Lagors. She-Hulk producer Jessica Gao pointed out the Hulk's time off planet Thor Ragnarok is the key to answering the question of why Hulk decided to go to space. Quote, "Well, all I'll say is, he spent a lot of time off planet as we saw in Thor Ragnarok. We only got to see a little tiny bit of what his life was like when he was on that planet," end quote. Gao continued by teasing the Hulk is set to handle some off-world things that happened during his time on Sakaar and potentially before he landed on that planet. Quote, God knows what Hulk got up to in the years he was there, so he's got to go back and handle some off-world things that happened during that time, end quote. Speaking to TV Line, Gao also mentioned the decision to take Bruce away from Earth was partially fueled by desire to communicate that Mark Ruffalo won't be the entire series. We want to make sure people knew that. Don't expect him to be in every episode from here on out. The MCU producer did add, though, that the spaceship does allow Marvel Studios to continue Hulk's outer space story if they wanted. I think it kind of opens up the possibility if Marvel chooses to do something with that to pick up the story if they wanted. She-Hulk director Coiro also teased that episode's one spaceship is tied into the narrative of our series, but it also lends itself to future projects.
Yeah, it definitely felt like it. I'm all for giving Hulk a movie. There's rumors of it. I don't know if we'll get any sort of news for that on D23 or not. There were some empty dates still after Comic-Con that need to be filled in for some of these films. So it all depends if there's still anything hindering it that makes Universal have the rights. If they do, there's not going to be a film. Can they do a show? Yeah,
that was going to be my question. Would a show allow Marvel and Disney to keep the rights because it's not technically a movie? 2, would you prefer a Hulk movie or a Hulk limited series like we're getting with 7 or 8 episodes where they can kind of go more into it?
I think I would like a movie because I'd love to see Hulk on the big screen again. A show might be the only way forward if they still have the Universal thing, because I believe She-Hulk was part of those film rights, which means that they were able to get around it with the show, if everything's correct. But yeah, so I'm totally down for more Mark Ruffalo.
Okay, so quick Google search. Let me see. This is from WDWNT.com. 2008, Universal holds the Hulk movie rights for 15 years, which would expire in June 2023. Will Disney and Marvel hold the rights to develop movies starring the Hulk? Universal and Marvel reach an agreement. Okay. While it is unconfirmed if there's a sequel or the rights are going to go to Disney, the SEC filing is the base of the rumor from the direct that the rights for the Hulk will be given back to Disney. There's another rumor of Marvel developing a World War Hulk movie following the events from She-Hulk. These are not included under Universal's Hulk rights.
I wonder how that would work, how that's not included, because it's still a Hulk film. So I'm not sure what they would mean by that, but it's interesting.
It could be maybe because maybe once again, if he's the only character and it's a solo Hulk movie, that's one thing. Maybe it's if he's with other characters, kind of like how when they did the Avengers, that kind of opens it up. I don't know.
Yeah, I just think if that's the case, they won't be able to even call it World War Hulk. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like to get around that, they're going to have to make it... Because what I've heard, too, is that actually, for Ragnarok, it came down to, like, they could not have Hulk a certain size on the movie poster because they didn't want it marketed as a Hulk film. Like, Universal would have been like, no, that means that we should have it. So it comes down to sometimes how big he can be on the poster. If that's the case, a World War Hulk movie would have him on the poster probably front and center, you would think. And maybe not a teaser poster, but the main theatrical poster where they put everybody's darn head on the poster would have him front and center. So the thing is, like, every time I looked up stuff about this, like, there's always contradicting information. And it seems like there's been, Marvel themselves have been reluctant to actually acknowledge this issue. And I think that it's probably smart of them, honestly, but
they probably legally may not be able to until
yeah, they may not.
Like with the whole thing with Microsoft buying Microsoft and Xbox buying Activision and Bungie, or not Bungie. I'm sorry, Activision and Blizzard. When it comes to some of these mergers and various things, they have to be very coy and very specific about what they say that they could do in the future or what they want to do in the future or whatever, because until Microsoft legitimately 100% owns it, they can't really comment on it because everything could fall through. But by them making comments on that, it could cause issues with stock prices and various other things. This could be the same thing where until they technically legally own the film rights again, they can't comment on the fact that they want to make a solo Hulk movie or this or that, because in theory, and it's happened with some other movies before, sometimes studios will rush out another movie in a series just so they can keep film rights.
Yeah.
And sometimes those movies, like
Fantastic Four.
I think that's happened like twice with them. But yeah, like that happens a lot where these like studios are gonna lose film rights or whatever unless they, like, if they make another movie, then they have the rights for like another 5 or 6 or 8 years or whatever the case may be. So Disney might have to be waiting. Like, they might be working on it, but they can't say anything publicly, because if they do, that could cause Universal to crank out, say...
Well, they can't. Universal only has distribution rights. They can't actually make the film. So they do have that going for them, at least.
So I definitely would be interested in seeing what goes on moving forward. I'd love to see him on the big screen as the Hulk, but I kind of feel like a smaller series might be able to, because especially if he's talking about having a kid or what happened when he was on another planet, you might need more than 2 hours for that. So
yeah. Definitely. Might need a long time for that. But yeah, it's lots of options that they have going forward. which is good, I think, because if they need to, they can just get around. They can just make it a show, make it a whatever, like whatever works for them. I think is what they'll do.
So Jennifer ends up accepting the job. She calls her boss back. She decides, hey, we're gonna do this. And just like a lot of things, after she accepts the job, you might want to turn on the TV. Which
yes.
I love how in television, and it's been brought up many times before. I love how in television and in movies, like anytime they turn on the news or the TV, it's always the story that they actually need to see right then and there.
Well, Arrested Development does a good. Isn't it Arrested Development that does that, where they like they turn on the TV and they're like, yeah, it's not this. It should be coming up.
And then I forget the guy, but then eventually he's like, when they do see the story, he's like, now imagine if that had come on right when we turned on the TV.
It's, you know what it is? It's the Lawyer by John Michael Higgins, who he plays.
I couldn't think of the guy's name. Yeah. Oh, that lawyer is awesome.
Yes, he is. He's what a pro.
He's a pro. I shall hide in the corner.
Yes. Oh boy. Yeah. Good references abound here. But yeah, so that's kind of what we're looking at going forward, I guess. Did we have anything else to say about?
Okay, so real quick,
speculation.
I haven't seen Shang-Chi.
Mm-hmm.
But so at least now by seeing that Hulk or Abomination rather has escaped from prison, that gives us a really good idea of the timeline of where this is fitting in with everything.
So actually, here's the thing. This actually takes place.
I was going to say, where does this fall in the timeline?
So the Shang-Chi part takes place months before this. So the video leaked of this, and then I guess caused him to break out, or he broke out and then video leaked of him doing this, because at the end of Shang-Chi, there's a post-credit scene where he gets welcomed in by Wong, and you have a post-credit scene with Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner, and Bruce is as human form because he's got that thing on his wrist from the beginning of the show, and his arm is still healed, still in the sling. So that part took place before their road trip, which means all of Shang-Chi took place before their road trip. Now the fight takes place in the middle of the movie. Wong is actually the one that brings him into that fight.
Okay.
And then at the end of the fight, he puts him back in his cell. You see him like open up a portal and he takes him back into his cell. So we're not really sure why that was a thing or why that it has been that way. But for whatever reason, the video of it just leaked, and after he had escaped is pretty much how that timeline's working out.
Okay, I'm glad you explained this, because I was under the impression that Abomination kind of hulked out and like destroyed part of the prison, and that's how he escaped.
Right.
I was not aware that Wong, as the Sorcerer Supreme, had kind of opened up a portal and let him out to go do whatever the fight was. And now, obviously, you say he throws him back in. So maybe at some point we'll see where Jennifer is trying to do damage control, blah, 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 and then he pops up back in his cell in this series. Because we see in the advertisements, we see Wong is in the series.
Yeah, I'm assuming he comes in next episode to kind of be like, "Hey, I'm familiar with Blonsky. I was doing this before." Like he was not broken out of jail. We were able to get him out. We had an agreement or whatever to have him fight in these underground fighting rings is what it was pretty much. And then I would always put him back. He has nothing to do with this part of him escaping. Maybe I can talk to him. I don't know. Maybe that's where Wong will be coming from.
Okay. Does the world know about the Sorcerer Supreme and obviously there's some people who know about,
it seems like it, Wong
and Doctor Strange, but does the rest of the world know about Doctor Strange and his powers and what they're capable of doing, or no? Was that something that maybe Ant-Man had talked about on his podcast and in his book.
It might be
tour.
I think they probably know. That'd be my guess. Is that they do know.
How does I wonder how the world feels about having actual wizards in it and knowing that
there's a whole bunch of questions we have.
They're wizards and they can bend and shape reality and things. But yeah, like I said, we know from the trailers that Wong is going to show up at some point. Like you said, hopefully, maybe it's the next episode or two. But we got to figure out what happens from here. I have no clue where this is going because there's so many pieces. We know that we just talked about, we know Mark Ruffalo and Hulk is not going to be in every episode. Honestly, even before I just read everything I read, I thought it was a good way to write him off on the ship, and I thought we weren't going to see him until maybe the last episode. Like I talked with you, or we texted back and forth before, I saw that they had pretty much confirmed that there was a cameo and an end credit scene in every episode of the series. So now it's a matter of who are these other cameos going to be from for the rest of the series. We know Wong's going to be there. We saw Blanc, we saw Tim Roth. Who else can they really bring in?
Daredevil. Daredevil is in the show. Yeah, he's been in some of the trailers. So we'll probably have some.
But can he practice law in California though? I don't know if that law license transfers.
No, I don't know if he'll be going there as a lawyer. So I guess that'll be part of the questions that we have. It'll be interesting.
We've only, outside of the separate show that they just integrated in, we saw him in Spider-Man as Matt Murdock, right?
Yes.
I haven't watched everything. Has he been in anything else? Or is this just going to be a second appearance integrated into the MCU?
He is supposed to be in... This will be a second appearance, but he's supposed to be in... he's getting his own show as well.
Yeah, but I was wondering, like I said, we know he had his separate show that had its things before it got integrated into Disney Plus now. Obviously, he was in Spider-Man. We saw that great, the great interactions with him. But I wasn't sure if he had been in, if they had introduced him into anything else, or is this so this is his second appearance. Okay, good.
Yep.
I don't, like I said, I don't know. There's so many different ways they can go, and I know nothing about the comics. I can't really give any guesses on what's going to happen, other than I want to see more of what's her name? What's the villain's name there?
Titania. We will. Yeah, they announced she'll be back at another point. So, from The Good Place.
Tahani.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to see more Titania, because that 30 seconds, or if that we got wasn't enough. So
I agree. Yeah, I was like, I think I said it last week too. Like we know there's got to be more, because you don't hype up her appearance. She was at the premiere and stuff. Like, you don't do all of that for her to be like never coming back back into the show.
To get punched once and that's it.
Yes, yeah, for 30 seconds. And you don't cast her for 30 seconds. You just don't.
So let's talk about the Easter eggs. So, like I said, this is one of the few things. I know it comes out like Wednesdays at midnight. I don't know if it's midnight out here or 9 o'clock.
Midnight Pacific. Yep.
Oh, so you guys got to wait up till like 3 a.m. if you want to watch it over there?
If you want to. I do not wait up till 3 o'clock to watch. I know
some people. Some people will, because
I've only done that once.
Be spoiled.
It was for The Mandalorian, and I was. It was Black Friday. It was going from into because that was back when it released on Fridays, and it was after Thanksgiving. I went home and we were watching other stuff, and it got to the point of 1 o'clock, and I was like, "Do you just want to stay up and watch it?" Like at this point, we're so close already.
Maybe just take a nap, set an alarm, get up. You're good then. So it's for midnight for me out here. I'm not staying up till midnight on Wednesdays. And I still get on, Twitter and things, but I don't search out any spoilers, and I don't really look at any spoilers. This is one of the few things I kind of get to spoiler free every episode. But like I said, after the episode, then I go through because Marvel can just pack so much stuff in all these things. So I've looked at, I've looked up Easter eggs because I know they're hiding in there. So the one that surprised me, and I'm good to see they're doing in every episode still, is the QR codes that lead you to free comics.
Yes,
Marvel.
they did that they start doing it in Moon Knight, I believe.
I don't do the comics, and the QR codes aren't always easy to find, but they've done it in both episodes so far.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I forget which one it gives you for this, but it gives you one of the comics. You know what? I can just scan it real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm so the biggest one for me is the one I sent you. Number 6. If you look up She-Hulk Easter eggs, there's an article on BuzzFeed for episode 2. Number 6, there is an article that reads on one of the computers, quote, "Man fights with metal claws in bar brawl." Now, I don't know all of the, like I said maybe before, I didn't read comics. I only know like the more popular superheroes. To me, that only can lead to one person, but I could be wrong.
I would say you're correct. There's not, especially in a bar fight, there's not many people in the bar fight arena of things that would be
that would have metal claws jutting out.
That would have metal
hands.
claws. I mean, yeah.
So I'm not saying that we will see Wolverine in this series. Although, can you imagine people's heads exploding if come episode 9, like Hugh Jackman or whoever is playing Wolverine for them popped up? Like, that would be mind blowing. But at least I like the fact that they're acknowledging that he's there. Like, they're acknowledging he's in the universe at least.
Yeah, that is a fun little Easter egg. I don't think we'll see him. I don't think...
No, I don't think we'll see him this early either.
Yeah.
But like I said, the fact that, like I said, they're acknowledging, like, yeah, he's in this world. We know you want to see him. You're going to have to wait.
Yes, yeah, that is okay. So I just scanned the QR code. It's from Dan Slott's She-Hulk run from 2004, the first issue. So you can read it on there. I don't know what the first episodes was. Probably the first 1981, but
yeah, I think the first one was the premiere issue of She-Hulk.
Okay. Because sometimes they didn't do, like, sometimes I think for Moon Knight they had the same comic for the first 2 episodes or something, so I wasn't sure how that would work here. Along with that, bar brawl Wolverine reference is we have a reference to a link on their site. It says, "Why there is a giant statue of a man sticking out of the ocean." That is a reference to Eternals, where one of the Celestials got kind of made into stone, and he's like coming out of the ocean. People have been complaining since Eternals came out, which is not even less than a year ago. why hasn't this been referenced in anything? Why hasn't this big statue have been referenced in anything? Well, there you go. There's a reference for you. I also saw a pretty funny TikTok about like how people complain that there's no there's no reference to this, like making fun of the concept of there's really been no movie that this would have been referenced in. Like Spider-Man is not going to drop whatever he's doing and be like, oh, isn't it weird that there's a giant man sticking out of the ocean? Like, to them, they've seen, I mentioned this in Moon Knight too, because people are like, why haven't they mentioned the sky moving and the stars moving and all that? I'm like, these are people that have dealt with like 2 alien invasions. They have seen a whole bunch of stuff. This is a normal Tuesday for the people of the MCU at this point. Not much would actually, I think, amaze them at this point. So that's a reference for it there. We have a picture. Her lock screen is a picture of America's ass, which is another great reference because she mentions his ass in episode 1, and it's also referenced to Ant-Man.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, and then we have, like you said before, the reference that her mom is saying about Bruce is actually the one who saved billions of people at the snap of his finger, and I think that's something that a lot of people forget in real life too. Like people usually say Iron Man is the one that saved everyone. He's the one that got rid of Thanos, but Hulk is the one that brought everybody back.
Another thing I forgot to bring up earlier, I was very touched in the premiere episode by the like half a second or a second of when Hulk brought up Tony, and you could kind of see the grief on his face. Yeah, he's realizing his science bro is gone. And you kind of forget, like, even though it's been a few years, like these people that were really close with Tony Stark, like they're still. I mean, Tony Stark is a larger than life personality. Like, he's Iron Man, but I mean, just everything he did was so large and bombastic. Like the fact that he's gone. People are going to have a hard time dealing with it. And we've seen Spider-Man, deal with it in his own way or have his grief, but it's good to see that they kind of acknowledge the friendship and the bromance that Hulk and Iron Man had, and the fact that he still misses and loves his friend. And that got me for a second.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's a tough thing to lose somebody that was, your science bro, right? And let's not forget, he's also lost Nat, who he was close with in Age of Ultron. He's lost Steve, who, maybe not as close as his as Tony or whatever, but Steve, he calls him a friend in the first episode, and really the only one left from that original group with him is Thor, who's off-world. So
where's Hawkeye?
Oh yeah, Hawkeye too. He had his own show where he is kind of retired at this point.
I hadn't watched the show, so that's why I was wondering, like, did Elena
he's kind of
kill
passed
him,
off the mantle.
Or
no, he's still alive. Yeah.
Okay. So there's not only that, but you talked about he lost Betsy from the Incredible Hulk.
We don't know where she is, I guess.
Or, if she's alive, or if they're just not having any communication or whatever. But yeah, so man, now that I think about it, Hulk has gone through a lot of grief, man. He's kind of a lonely dude out there.
Yeah, he's had a rough go of it. He's lost a lot of people. So it is no surprise, I guess, that he's gone through a lot. I guess he still has his family, but now this is why I think it's also a perfect time to introduce his son if that's where they go with it, because after losing so many of his friends and stuff like that, it'd be pretty good to kind of have another familial connection there. Some more of these Easter eggs. Of course, she's going into the Department of Damage Control prison, which is the Department of Damage Control was in Ms. Marvel. It was in No Way Home. It's been referenced in Homecoming. They're the ones that actually kick out Vulture from doing his cleanup.
Yeah, okay, that's where I kind of
Mhm.
remembered the name from, but I couldn't place it.
Yep. And I'm just scrolling through this real quick. So, and then of course there's the reference to the Shang-Chi fight with the footage. Yeah, so that's most of them. Of if we're actually talking Marvel ones, yeah, they do have a Find Ant-Man, like I guess mini game on this website that she's looking at, which I assume is like a Where's Waldo with Ant-Man, and it could be pretty tough if they make him small in the font, like in the pages.
I I didn't even know that was there.
Yeah, it's like on the header underneath of the, like she's reading the article, but above it there's
Oh,
like all these options to look at, and one of them
I thought you
is
were talking about
Find
like they
Ant-Man.
were. I thought you were talking about like they were like having a hidden Ant Man in the show. I was like, Jesus.
Oh no,
Oh.
no. That would be interesting though.
Um, the biggest thing for me is like I said, this show has been fun. I'm sure we will get more into some possibly more serious and action adventure stuff. But this has been a fun show that I've enjoyed watching through the first two episodes, and at least for me, I don't know if anything can top WandaVision. Maybe that's just because of the connection I had with Wanda and her character and Vision
Yeah.
from all of the Infinity Saga. So maybe I gotta admit that could have something to do with it because it wasn't a totally new character to me, and the fact that it was Elizabeth Olsen and Wanda. But this is, for me at least, this right now is above Loki. And Loki was great, but this is probably number two so far for me.
Yeah, I don't know how I would rank these at this point. It's getting tough for me. Um, so I did really enjoy this episode. I'm looking forward to more of this. I'm glad we have 9 episodes of this. Like that is something I'm very excited about, and instead of just 6 episodes like we've been getting. Um, so I'm very excited for having 9. I think more of these Disney shows need to get to like 8, 9 range. Um, Loki season 2 is filming. That's going to be out sometime next year. Um, so Casey, you're welcome back on for that as well. I know we're doing Agatha whenever that releases, so we'll have
Oh,
to
that
jump
I
on that.
cannot wait for. She is. I don't know what they're gonna do with Agatha, but Catherine Hahn destroyed that character, and I absolutely love her in that role, and I want to see more. And like I said, with that, I know we won't get it, but we should get who's the guy with the magic tricks and Darcy. Darcy and
Oh
Wu.
yeah, Jimmy Woo. Yeah,
If we like, and obviously Disney knows what they're doing, so they don't need to take my advice. But I would love to get like a Darcy and Wu X-Files type thing, where they could be the ones going around trying to find these superhumans and various things, and get into shenanigans. That would be awesome.
well, it's funny. I went to my comic shop the other day, and I have a few comics I get every week. But oh wow, my background just came on. But anyway, I got this comic book called Damage Control, so obviously named after the Department of Damage Control. Let me turn off this background. Not that everybody, I don't put the video up on this, but I wanted to bring this up because you mentioned Jimmy Woo. So I believe this is Jimmy Woo here, headlining this comic book, and we also have She-Hulk in this comic book. But I wanted to buy this. This is the first issue because I think this team, if this is going to be a team up comic, is pretty interesting. Got Nightcrawler, Quicksilver, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Ghost Rider with Jimmy Woo. So I was like, this is a really cool cover. I'm going to buy this. Haven't read it yet, but something I was very interested in. Okay. Well, I guess that wraps us up here. I wanted to mention too. You mentioned WandaVision. Matt Shackman, who is the director of all WandaVision episodes, is supposedly in talks to direct Fantastic Four for Marvel, and that might be announced on the D23 showcase. Yeah.
When is that?
September 9th, 10th, and 11th. I think the 10th is the day of Marvel and Lucasfilm stuff. Yeah, I think so. Okay. They're also doing Disney Plus Day on the 8th, so they might get even some announcements of more series or maybe trailers or something. I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, because I'm looking forward to what is it? Secret Wars with Nick Fury or whatever.
Secret Invasion. Yep.
Yeah, Nick Fury. I want to see Nick Fury's series there. I know it won't happen, but I want Samuel L. Jackson to drop one MF in the series. It's Samuel L. Jackson. They gotta let him get one in, but it's Disney, so they probably won't.
Yeah, I would say most likely a no there, but you never know anymore because we do have the Daredevil series on there now.
At least with these, they're starting to get a little more. Like, I wouldn't have never expected a Disney thing to have a Hulk calling someone a dick, or She-Hulk chucking the bird to Hulk after he kicked her off the cliff. Like, 2 or 3 years ago, I would not have expected that on Disney.
Well, we have had the flip-offs before. I know Peter Quill does it quite a few times. He does it once in Guardians, and he definitely does it in Infinity War. But yeah, it's usually not that frequent.
So Disney's I think they're realizing their audience is a little more mature and can handle some stuff. Like you said, I know we'll never get the closest we got was at the end of Infinity War, but or not Infinity War. Was it Infinity War? Right before he got snapped.
Oh no. Well, no, we have the closest is probably at the end of Far From Home when Peter is about to say it and it cuts to credits when he gets outed.
Yeah, there's that, and then there's the one from like when Fury was turned to dust.
Oh yeah. So there's been a few close calls, I guess.
When he paged Captain Marvel, yeah, that was yeah. And honestly, if anybody deserved it, those two instances kind of deserve an F-bomb. Like,
yeah. I would agree. Those are pretty close to perfect at that point. Alrighty. Well, if you want to give us a follow, you can follow us on Twitter at TO Infinity Saga. I share some of the comic books I pick up every week there. You can email us marvelplusrecaps@gmail.com or reach us on Facebook, facebook.com/Infinity Saga Beyond. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you all next week for episode 3 of She-Hulk.